Good morning, students. Today we will start economics first chapter, that is the chapter of Indian economic development, Indian economy on the eve of independence. First of all, we should know that why we include this chapter in our syllabus. There are two reasons. First, you should become familiar with the state of the Indian economy in 1947, and secondly, you should understand the factors that led to the underdevelopment and stagnation of the Indian economy. So let's start. First, I will tell you which points are included in this chapter. We will study about the colonial exploitation of Indian economy, features of Indian economy, the features of industries, agricultural sector, foreign trade, the demographic profile during the British rule, the occupational structure, and the infrastructure on the eve of independence. So let's start, students. Indian economy under the British rule was subjected to colonial exploitation. Colonial exploitation targeted all sectors of the economy by the British government, whether it was the agricultural sector, industrial sector, or the international trade. All sectors suffered a lot. During pre-British India, our agriculture was well developed. Not only India produced for its own consumption, food grains and all, but it exported also in abundance cotton, silk, rice, sugar, butter, and infrastructure was also so developed. During the British period, agriculture was exploited through zamindari system of land revenue. Zamindars were declared as owners of the soil. They were to pay a fixed sum to the government. But the tillers of the soil, the actual cultivators, they got barely for survival only. Prior to the British rule, industrial sector in India was well known for its handicrafts. Handicrafts means the work produced by hand labor. Previously, Indian handicrafts enjoyed a worldwide reputation for their variety and quality, but these were destroyed by the British government in two ways. First, they imposed heavy duty on their exports, and secondly, they made the British goods duty free in the Indian market. India's international trade was exploited through discriminatory tariff policy, means a tax on imports. It implied duty free export of Indian raw material to fulfill the industrial needs in Britain and duty free imports of British goods to expand demand for the British goods in the Indian market. The result was that India became the importer of finished goods from Britain and exporter of raw material to Britain. Now we will study about the occupational structure on the eve of independence. It means the distribution of working population across primary, secondary and tertiary sector of the economy. Primary sector includes agriculture activities, forestry, fisheries, animal husbandry, plantation, mining. Secondary sector includes the small and large scale industries and building constructions, whereas tertiary sector includes the service sector. On the eve of independence, about 72.7% of working population was engaged in agriculture. And barely 10% of the working population in India was engaged in manufacturing industries. Only 17.2% population was engaged in tertiary sector, that is called service sector. What does it show? We can say the growth is balanced when all sectors of the economy are equally developed. But in case of India, secondary and tertiary sectors were in their infant stage of growth. So we can conclude that the Indian economy at the time of independence was backward. The demographic conditions during the British rule showed all features of a stagnant and backward economy. We can see some parameters. First is birth rate and death rate. Both were very high, nearly 48 and 40 per thousand respectively. It showed the massive poverty in the country. Second is infant mortality rate. What's it? Infant mortality rate means the death rate of children below the age of 1 year per thousand live births. It was also very high, about 218 per thousand, but while at present it is 32 per thousand. It also showed that the poor healthcare services were there. Third is life expectancy. Expectancy means the average life of a person. It was also very low. Average it's 32 years, while presently it is about 70 years. It also shows that time it was lack of healthcare facilities, lack of awareness, and lack of means to avail them. The fourth one is literacy rate. Literacy rate means the persons who can read and write. It was also nearly 16%. It also reflects social backwardness as a reflection of economic backwardness. And if we talk about the female literacy, it was still worse, only 7%. This also indicated gender bias in the society. In the history of demographic transition, 1921 is regarded as the year of Great Divide. Prior to this year, 1921, population growth in India was never consistent. It had been changed. From the year 1921 onwards, total population in India never declined. It showed a consistent rise. A consistently rising population on the eve of independence led to excessive burden of maintenance investment. On the eve of independence, Indian economy had the following features or the characteristics. The Indian economy was stagnant. It means one which shows little or no growth in income. So, the bulk of Indian population lived in poverty. Standard of living of the people remained very low. Epidemics and famines were a recurring phenomenon. The Indian economy was called backward economy because the per capita income in India was just 230 rupees only. The population was very poor without sufficient food, clothing and shelter, and unemployment was spread all over. The agriculture was very backward, and the industrial sector, we have read about it already in the previous part of video. All these conditions led to the rampant poverty. Bulk of the population was very poor, I have told you. People were not getting 2 square meals a day. They lacked shelter and clothing. Infrastructure was also very poor. Infrastructure means the economic and social changes, which includes the means of communication, transport, power, generation, energy. Infrastructure refers to the elements of economic change like means of transport, communication, banking, power or energy, and the elements of social change like growth of educational, health and housing facilities. Actually, these all serve as a foundation for growth and development of a country. Railways were developed to transport finished goods from Britain to the interiors of the colonial India. Ports were developed to handle exports of raw material to Britain and imports of finished goods from Britain. Post and telegraphs were also developed to enhance administrative efficiency. Roads were also developed to facilitate transportation of raw material from different parts of the country to the ports. But the motive behind this change was not the growth and development of the Indian economy, but it was the growth and development of the British economy through colonial exploitation of the Indian economy. Certainly, the motive of the British government in India was clear and focused. It was colonial exploitation of the Indian economy. But we can see some positive side effects also. The commercial outlook of the farmers, we can see they moved to the commercialization from subsistence farming. The development of railways, roads, and transport facilities, the new opportunities of employment was generated, and it controlled the famines because the transport facilities facilitated rapid movement of food grains to the famine affected areas. The monetary system of exchange was also transited from barter system of exchange to monetary system of exchange. The British government also left a legacy of an efficient system of administration. This served as a ready reference for our politicians and planners. So, this was the first chapter of Indian economic development. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe.